My greatest desire growing up was to go to school. I spent my formative years achingly watching other children get onto noisy school buses, or running around on the playground, or studying together in libraries. I daydreamed of school hallways, bright as the sun, lined with beautiful, mysterious lockers, brimming with all sorts of forbidden knowledge. From the time I was born, I had been assured that I would never grace the halls of an actual school, but that never dimmed my desire. Our pastors and ideologies taught that public schools were filled with all sorts of debauchery, and children were indoctrinated with lies and evil as soon as they started attending these institutions. Our way was that children should stay in the home, under their parents, absorbing whatever information their parents thought was necessary for their good raising. The world was created in 7 days by God's own hand, and there was no need for us to learn any other alternative. Public school children were looked down on as already backslidden and tainted. Little hope for those degenerates, whose careless parents willingly handed them over to corruption. Lockers and time outside the home and friend groups were only ways for deceptive children to stray further from a godly path. So I stayed out of school. Our curriculum was rigorous Bible reading and memorization, with light mathematics, astronomy, geography, biblical science, and Greek and German. My parents tried to teach me Spanish, but always threatened to put me to work proselytizing in the streets if I were to become fluent. Missions always sounded like the opposite of what I wanted to do, so I refused to learn Spanish. By the time I was 12, we also added an hour or two of biblical training on how to be a godly and submissive wife and mother to our curriculum. My least favorite part of school in my teens was the plastic binder full of over 100 verses that we would have to stand and read in the mornings. My mother would often remind my sister and I that she had made all of our older siblings memorize every single verse from that book before they could graduate, but that she was being kind enough to only make my sister and I read them every morning. We had to stand in the middle of the room in front of her in our baggy school jumpers, and we were to read very clearly and cheerfully. I often failed at being cheerful, and that would make our mornings that much more difficult. I would read the verses in the most grating monotone I could muster. I know my sister hated that I wouldn't just push through cheerfully, but after a year or two of reading those verses every weekday morning, it felt impossible. As a side note, my disdain for having such a Bible-heavy curriculum and wanting to learn more and go to school was a reflection to my parents that I was obviously filled with worldly desires and would probably slip into sin.